Welcome to Matrimonial Merger, the podcast where Ambry and Jesse, a husband and wife couple, share their insights and experiences on relationships, health, and wealth. With their expertise in business and as neuro-linguistic master practitioners, they provide valuable advice on overcoming challenges and achieving success. Join us for practical tips on navigating the intersection of personal and professional life.
Welcome to the Matrimonial Merger Podcast. It is a wonderful recording.
So it sounded like
day.
you were going to sing that for a minute.
Welcome to. All right. Today we're going to be talking about the conflict management and resolution in business and family.
Who can't use some of that in their life?
Oh my gosh, right? Like you and I started this podcast for this very reason.
We never have conflicts, ever.
Never.
If you believe that, then you know.
Our business is always perfect. Everything's great.
Life.
Just
We never argue about anything. We never disagree about anything.
nothing.
Like, who does that?
I disagree with that. But honestly, like you and I started this podcast because we have been managing personal life and business for so freaking long. Like how many years are we at it now? 7?
7, yeah. Like
It's crazy.
7 as far as like we quit our jobs and we went full time, like all in on our endeavors.
And I wish that we could go back and say that it's been a beautiful and like easy road, but it has not in some cases. There have been times when it's been really fun.
Lots of learning.
And there's been times where there's been a lot of feedback.
I mean, there's been some months
growth.
when we're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Like, do we just need to like cut everything and just like go back to an 8 to 5? Like,
Yeah.
you know, that happens like I would say probably once a year at least.
Oh yeah.
When we're just like, okay, like we either have to, like we got to recommit and we got to reevaluate and redefine like what we're doing, where we're heading, you know, all of that.
Well, couple that with like you and I remember this. You and I went on a date and we said, we're not going to talk about business and we're not going to talk about kids. And we kind of sat there for like 20 minutes.
I was like, what do we talk about?
Yes. It was like, we're
Which
not
is
going to
really
talk.
sad.
It was terrible. And that was one of those pivotal moments like, okay, we've got to start figuring out a healthier balance, because it was funny. Like
maybe we need one of those like couples questions, like deck of cards or whatever, you know?
Well, we got stuck in this like, all right, we're gonna go on a date, but the date's gonna be nothing but our kids and like what do we have going on, and it's either kids or work, because our work is like another child to us, and it got very, very unhealthy. And then the worst part about that was that eventually, as we had baby number 2, who is now our 3-year-old, the worst part about it is like you nor I were prepared for what was going to change in that moment.
No way.
We had our second child, and all of a sudden it was like I lost my business partner, right? You kind of took a step back for a minute being mom, and then that's what you ultimately wanted to do. And there became this like transition phase of like, okay, well,
yeah,
Ambry's still here and she's still important in this business.
Yeah.
But Ambry is not like in it all the time.
Well, and there's so many things that we were balancing between the two of us that we had to be like, okay, well, one person can't do this, right? Like if I need to take a step back for a few weeks while I'm, you know, not sleeping with a newborn and figuring not all of that out with a second kid, like then what? And truly it ended up pushing us into a lot of positive change and hiring an admin. And that like has been a huge catalyst for growth in our business, but you know, wouldn't have happened otherwise. But yeah, we had to like evaluate, you know, like how are we going to make this work? What is this going to look like? Because clearly this is not working.
Yeah.
And
there was this interesting balance where like you would want to be involved,
right?
I
felt so conflicted.
You wanted
like
to be involved.
Inner conflicts.
And then there'd be this, but the other part of you, right, being a mom. And so there'd be times when like you would step in and you would be very helpful, but it wasn't helpful either at the same time, because you would come in and it would make a little bit of a help momentum, but then you nor I really had mastered the idea of tracking and knowing what was said or what was not said.
Yeah.
All we had was our little like group message thread, right?
Right.
Therefore,
we had to like allow the space to develop new processes and ideas and ways to, and I had to learn to like just step back on some things that, it's like, okay, if I don't want to be in this full time because I want to spend time with the kids, and I homeschooled Quincy, that year, and it was like, well, no, not that year, but last year. Anyways, like if I want to do that, then this has to look different. Like, I have to be willing to let go of certain like aspects of control or whatever you want to call it, right? And that was like an interesting conflict for me to go through and for us to go through together and, understand the way that would look. But
if you're listening to this show, it's because you're a successful business owner or you're striving to become more successful. But guess what? Anytime you've experienced new success, it has brought new challenges. It's time for a change. Check out the Business Liberation System. It's the key to regaining focus and working on your business, not just in it. You see, as you experience more and more success, that success is bringing new things into your business that's taking away from your concentration, and it's costing you money. You're slowly going from CEO back to an employee, and don't let that catch you. It's time for you to recognize these things and get back on the track of becoming the CEO of your business so that you can work on it. Go to theemergecoaching.com and get on the fast track by joining the Business Liberation System. To get there even faster, click on the show notes and it will take you right to where you need to be. Success should bring freedom, not frustration. Let's get back to the episode. Absolutely. And I think that experience, as we're opening up this podcast talking about like what you and I went through, it kind of goes down to a few core things that you and I learned along the way that has helped us out. And number one thing is establishing what it is you want at home first, right? Like what is the goal at home that you want to accomplish and going after that. Now, you may be working with like a father-in-law or you may be working with some other family member, but at home, your relationship with your father-in-law, your relationship with family, what do you want that to look like? And really setting that boundary. Because I think
when you're not at work, you mean like at Thanksgiving dinner or, like whatever it is, like something like that.
Right. Exactly.
Got it.
I think that was number one for us, is just setting the boundaries and saying, okay, and we're still working at that. Like there's times where we're still working at it, but setting those boundaries and holding to it.
Yeah.
I know for me, the hour of 7 to 8 o'clock, my phone, like I try to stay off my phone and help with bedtime and really get involved there with the kids. And also I try to be ready to go when the kids come home between 3:30 and 5 o'clock. I try to be ready to step away from the computer, but having that balance, number one, helps resolve a lot of the conflict in general, because at some point, like I can get lost in work. Like I really, really enjoy working. Like it sounds silly, but I enjoy it. And I could sit down in my office 12, 16 hours a day and work hard. But like,
that does sound kind of silly.
But I really enjoy it, especially right now where there's all these things that are happening at such great speed.
You're able to use your creativity.
I'm able to use my creativity. Exactly. So of course I'm in like this flow state. Well, obviously setting those boundaries at home, what do I want my home life to look like? And then making sure that I'm adhering to that.
Yeah.
No matter how much
really
fun
good point.
work gets going, like adhering to that.
I love that.
And so as we go through that, like that's number one, establish what you want at home. And then number two, like understand and be able to, I wouldn't say develop like a shell, but understand that the home life and work life are different. There are different elements to it. Like you and I would get in a very interesting conversation at work, and then translating that over to like, okay, now we're husband and wife, like which hat are we taking off and putting on? That was really, really hard.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it still is a like conscious balance and effort, like,
right.
And
being able to communicate effectively and explain it. Right.
Right.
And I think that going back to that, being able to take ownership and say, okay, this is where I need to really start to focus, or I need to take accountability, right? Instead of pointing the finger, you did this, start looking inward and saying, this is what happened, and I'm the reason why this happened because of this. Starting to get curious, just like we've talked about in other podcast episodes, having conversations and getting curious, understanding the why. Why are you acting this specific way? Why are things happening this way? What is that a direct reflection of me? And understanding that is, I would say, one of the second most, like it would be one of the most important things. Obviously, your boundaries, your family, but then understanding that everything you do is a reflection of something that you need to learn.
Yeah.
And there were so many times where the ball would get dropped in miscommunication in our company, either by me, by you, by an admin, and I would get so frustrated and I would just freak out, which would then lead to hurting feelings and making you feel frustrated. But then that also affected home life because like you're carrying the
as
feelings.
Much as you try to separate them, like
Right.
we're still the same people.
Right. Exactly. We're still husband and wife and we're still having that conversation. And so understanding that everything is a reflection of you, and what's happening is not happening to you, but it's happening for you. It's something for you to learn from to get better.
Yeah. And I think on that note, like something that we talked about earlier today was being able to separate yourself from the emotional, like the problems that other people are dealing with and the emotion that they have attached to it. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, when someone is dealing with something, whether it's a client or a friend or whatever, when there's like, I mean, I feel like I got to tread lightly because I could make this sound very insensitive. Like, obviously we have friends, family that go through like actual real life, like hard things. And we do take that on sometimes. And we do, you know, we feel the compassion and sympathy, but specifically what I'm referring to is like in our real estate business, when we very first started, we would get emotionally involved and invested, like in a not very healthy way, like too emotionally invested in every transaction. It would affect us.
Yeah.
And we had to learn this balance of like, okay, how do we remain invested and doing all the right things professionally and, you know, representing our client to the utmost, the best of our ability, right? Highest level. However, we're not worrying about taking on and suffering from their emotions, their, you know, the things that they are feeling throughout that transaction. Because if you've ever bought or sold a home, there's a lot there. I mean, we joke sometimes that sometimes we are also like a therapist or a, you know, like which is something you kind of have to be prepared for in this line of work. And it's something that, you know, I enjoy. But you have to be able to separate yourself from those emotions. So it is what it is. It's what someone's feeling, but you can't take it on and bring it home and let it affect you.
Right.
And this can apply to, you know, any line of work, right? But when you step away from work, being able to allow those things to dissolve behind you, and so you can go and fulfill those relationships in your life that matter, you know, and to be 100% there. And that was something that I feel like took us a while to, first of all, recognize like that it was causing, you know, friction or causing a problem in our life.
Right.
But then to be like, okay, so, you know, now we need to figure out the tools and the ways to turn this into a positive thing. Because one of the things that I believe has always set us apart about our, you know, what we do. I mean, there's hundreds of realtors all around us, you know. Any one person could probably name 5 people that they know off the top of their head who are a real estate agent. That's just how it is. I think one of the things that has always set us apart is our passion for the people, right? Not just the transaction, but like the person in the transaction. And we want that. We want them to feel that, and we want to be invested. And so we had to learn how to do that without taking on the emotions, helping them process their emotions without taking them on ourselves.
Agreed.
Which is a healthy skill for anyone in any relationship, really.
Yeah. And I mean, this episode can go for both, like in the home right? As well as in the business. And to do
For sure.
like to go down the road of something more specific in your business, I think it's increasingly important for you to be aware of what the roles are in your business.
Yeah.
And setting up proper roles of who does what, and understanding that those roles are designed specifically for you to thrive and to be happy and to find lots of motivation. Like one of the businesses that we're running right now, our partner and I are like finally figuring it out. It's been 2 years of just up and down roller coaster ride. He expects one thing from me. I expect another thing from him. We both expect us to be working and doing the same amount of output and input. And ultimately, what we're finally starting to realize is, hey, he's really good at marketing, or he's really good at networking, and I'm really good at marketing and setting up systems and processes. So although in this case, systems and processes may not result in the deals that he's resulting in because he's out networking, creating, and generating business, my systems and processes are maintaining those deals so that we can continue to do more and have more time to do what we enjoy doing. And putting that together and understanding that like there are roles specifically in your business. If you have a small business or even a medium-sized business and you have 3 people that are all doing the same thing, like, all trying to manage, it's disaster.
And if you expect someone else to even understand or appreciate what you're doing like you do, I mean, they'll see the value in it because it's something that they aren't, passionate about or as good at, but you have to own your role and then allow someone else to do theirs.
Well, and let's be honest, like there's a lot of talk about, marriage should be 50-50.
Yeah.
Like sometimes marriage is 75-25, depending on the situation.
I think it's 100.
Well, but like,
like,
someone's carrying a little bit more than the other in some
certain
cases,
areas,
in certain areas. Right.
I mean, you could look at every week of our life and there's never like a perfect balance of who did the dishes, right?
Right.
Like how many times a week did I do the dishes versus you? I mean, one week you did them 80% of the time. The next week I did them 90% of the time. Like, it's just, it's, yeah.
But it's understanding those roles, but then also going back and saying in our home life, and we bring up laundry a lot, like laundry laundry does not make you happy. You don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. Folding laundry, it just is a huge time waster. So now you and I look at each other and say, let's eliminate this off our plate. And we hire someone to do our laundry. Like it's things like that in your business, you have to have clear defined roles. I know when I go downstairs and I work, that is my clear defined role that I'm working, providing. On the flip side, you understand that you're going to be taking a lot of the children and the feedback from activities and other things. And then when we get together, we both understand our roles together is to help get our kids to bed. But no, really, like, continue to nurture and help our kids. But that's the same thing with your business, right? Like if you're a CEO, you cannot have 3 CEOs. So establish it. Who's doing this? Who is going to be the best person in this role? Then moving over, who's the next person in marketing? Who's the next person in finance? And giving everyone clear-cut positions that they're in charge of instead of just saying, hey, round table, everyone do everything, right? One of the greatest things we've ever done in our business is we looked at one of our employees and we said, man, she is really spending a lot of time in this area, but then we have her doing 7 other things, and it doesn't make sense to have her doing all these things. She's not getting as much done. She's not as productive, and it's not her fault. It's our fault. Let's simplify and just give her one specific thing to focus on. And she's dang good at it. And it's making a huge change in our business.
One of my favorite messages last week on our team thread was when we got a message from one of our employees that was like, thank you so much for like, you'll have to like.
It was thank you so much for making this easier.
For always looking for ways to make our lives easier, make our jobs easier. That was like so impactful to me. 'Cause I'm like, that's literally what we've been focused on. That's what you've been like creating over the last, specifically like the last 6 months, really.
Right.
You're like, okay, where is there water running over the top of the cup, right? That it just doesn't make sense. And how can we create a better, more smooth transition? How can we just fixing the gaps, fixing the kinks, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And it's made a huge difference on the way that our business has run and the general feeling too, just among, yeah, our employees.
And there's no coincidence that our business is doing really well right now.
Yeah. And it feels a lot less stressful.
Yeah. And we're working on bigger projects together that are more impactful, more meaningful, that are getting, like, we have a list of 1,000 people, and we are integrating this list to figure out ways that we can bless them and touch their lives in different ways outside of just the real estate transaction, right? How can we help these 1,000 people that we know to create deeper meaning and relationship, right? Ultimately, we know that theoretically, like, everything will come back, and because we believe in a law of reciprocity, but like, this is an opportunity for us to focus on a greater impactful thing in our community, which then gives us even more life. And it's that kind of stuff, that understanding the roles, but specifically letting go of it too. Like, if you are, I think you and I can we can talk about this, because our whole real estate team is family.
Right.
And has been ever. Like, it is cousins' wives, it's cousins, it's, we've had everyone come in and help. We've had brothers come in, sisters, and we try to keep it within the family, because this is an opportunity for us to really strengthen relationships. And there has been conflict. We have a lot of,
we do have a lot of employees that are not family in different aspects of businesses, but specific to our real estate business,
it's always been family.
Yeah, it's just kind of how things have happened. And when the opportunity arises, there just happens to be somebody with the right ambition and tools and skills to fill that gap. So it's kind of just worked out
and it's
perfectly.
But it brings its own set of levels. Like, there have been family members that we've had to politely excuse, and that hasn't been easy, but it also is because we're setting the proper expectations. This is what needs to be done, and if this doesn't get done, then it's not because we don't like you, it's because you're not a good fit in this position. So we can either
chances are they weren't even happy with
exactly
with what they were doing in the first place.
Exactly, because let's be honest, like, I'm gonna pick on Whitney. She's awesome, and Whitney, if you're listening to this, like, it's the best. When we first hired Whitney, I had a list of everything that I wanted her to do, and that list was like so sporadic, all over the place. So I handed it to her, and I'm like, "Here you go, Whitney." And she kind of was like, "Okay, cool." Like, she'd ask a question here and there, but then I'd get frustrated because I'm like, "Whitney, it's been 6 months. Don't you know this stuff, right?" And I'd come at her, and then I'd be like, "Well, okay, yes, but that hasn't happened so frequently. So I need more training." So then I'd give her training on this thing. And then it was all these weird, maybe it would happen once or twice a year, but I was training her on these really weird things. Right.
Yeah, but there was no really consistency in the processes. So it's at all. Have you ever been in a kitchen trying to watch the chicken that's cooking and cook the pasta over here? Oh, and then there's a cheese ball being made over there. Something,
and then you burn the nachos
on the grill outside. If you've ever been making a meal and you're trying to make 4 or 5 different semi-complicated recipes at one time, it's it just is not a good idea.
No, it's not.
Too much multitasking.
And that's what we were doing. And it took me forever, because I was sending her all these things, and then, there's a new idea, there's a new project. And then it finally came into play that we hired our second admin, Ellie, who's phenomenal as well. And she was like, "You need to slow down." She didn't have a problem explaining. She's like, "I'm confused. I need a checklist." And as I was going through writing checklist, I was like, what the heck am I even doing myself? It started to open up my mind to I'm expecting them to do all these things that are going on that are in my mind, but I don't even have a process or a system that would set these guys up for success. So then I'm coming back at them frustrated and saying why is this happening? And in theory, it was a reflection of me, going back
Right.
to what we talked
The
about.
clarity and expectation.
Exactly. And so that's where, as you're running a family business or you're just running your family in general, having the clear expectations, what's going on in your head needs to be implemented. It needs to be a plan. You need to have a system and a process. Ambry and I, one of the things we're working through right now is vacation planning. Like, we will love going on vacations, but both of us, when it comes to vacations, we, for whatever reason, it just
Pulling
becomes...
the trigger is like, no one wants to do it.
Well, it's because there's a lot of questions involved. I'm not a question person. I'm just like, we'll figure it out. We'll do it. You like to have everything lined up. And you and I, our vibe and our flow when it comes to vacation planning clearly indicates that there's no system.
Right.
And that it causes a lot of friction. So in our minds, we now have to look at that and say, how do we create a system around vacation planning that does not cause us friction? Lo and behold, we both find out I don't like planning vacations. You don't like planning vacations. We both like going on vacation. So what do we need? We need someone to book our vacations for us.
I like looking at everything and like, okay, this makes sense. This doesn't. This makes sense. But then like, it's so, to me, feels so overwhelming that like, I look at all this stuff and then I just walk away and like, don't actually book it because it's like
too much.
I don't know.
Exactly.
So then today we're like, all right, this makes sense. Okay, well, let's just send that over to our travel agent friend right now and just tell them to book it so that we don't walk away and like never do it.
Right.
So funny.
That's the type of stuff that we're talking about. If you're experiencing friction or frustration, that is your warning sign. That is your red siren going off saying there's not a system or process here that's working for both of you. And that's the truth. Like, and that's in your business, that's in your personal life. If there is frustration, your emotion is your first indicator that there is commotion somewhere that needs to be resolved. And it's 9 times out of 10 because there's not a system or process that truly works for you and your business right now in this moment. Therefore, it becomes almost like, I would say crucial. It becomes completely, after knowing and understanding this, it would be extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Neglectful for you. Now understanding that you would just be neglecting your business. It'd be like listening to a child cry in the corner and you don't do anything about it. Like, at this point, I can't even describe the words that it would be if you did not now recognize, after hearing this podcast, recognize the commotion, the emotions coming through, and then starting to make a change.
Right.
If you just let it be there and continue to let it be there, it's to your own detriment at this point. And that's where business conflict generally arises, when you don't do anything about it and you just let the kid continue to cry in the corner. When someone gets hurt in our family and neither mom nor dad address it, mom feels frustrated, dad feels frustrated because neither one is addressing the situation. When really it's the child that needs the help, not, and it needs a process. It needs some sort of attention.
Something to follow.
And that's where it comes down to business, is you need to be paying attention to the feedback in it every single day, recognizing where are the crying children in your business that need help. And as you implement that system and process, it will change your business. It is. Well, that's the thing is, there were crying children in our business all the time, and it would happen subtly, right? Like, oh, we're not getting paid. It takes 3 extra days to get paid on this transaction. Why? I don't know. We'll just figure it out later. Oh, now it took 5 days to get paid on this. Well, we really need to make payroll. You kind of
ignore it until it comes around the next time, and you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot this sucks.
But
I haven't fixed it.
Who's not doing their job?
Yeah.
And then you start to point the finger, but then you realize the reason why there was nothing there is because you failed to put together an easy way for them to upload your wire instructions to the bank account that you wanted to go to. That's all it took. But you weren't paying attention to the crying child. You were just yelling at the child for crying. Take that for an analogy.
That hits home.
It does. So with that being said, number 1, just to wrap up this show, number 1, set proper expectations and boundaries with your family. When it's outside of work, it is family. It is not work, right? Hold your loved ones accountable to it. And don't talk about work. It's okay. Like, it's really hard sometimes when you're at a funeral and your admin, because their family are there and they want to talk about work, and you're like trying to have a normal conversation. I get it. I've been there. It's very difficult, but you have to set those boundaries. And then going into number 2, you have to start attacking or looking at everything as if it was a reflection of you. There's something that's happening for you so that you can learn. It's not happening to you. Your employees are not dumb. They are individuals that just don't understand the system or process that you want them to do it. There's miscommunication. And then the third and final thing is paying attention to the crying kid in the corner. Where are the crying babies in your business?
So sad.
See, but it hits home. You're over there like, it's so sad. But now every time there's feedback in your business, you're like, crying baby, need to address.
Somebody go help it.
Where is
Someone
the crying
baby
in your business? And when you figure that
Cuddle
out,
it. Cuddle the baby.
Figure it out. Give the baby the nourishment that it needs, and your systems and your processes will be born. And then once again, a business is sold on its processes and systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you want to be an elite business selling for the most money, you've got to have your system process. You want to be an elite family feeling all the love and attention that everyone needs, you need to have systems and processes in place for that. This is what our life is about, is we figure it out, what it needs to be done. How do we optimize it? How do we automate it so it becomes easier and everyone's happy? How do we find the next crying baby in the corner?
Boom.
And as you do that, your life gets better and easier.
Cry.
Don't let the babies cry.
I'm going to be worried about that now.
I know. Oh, I love it.
Kidding.
But thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
Great topic, Jesse. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm grateful for keyword research and learning, what it is that you as the audience actually wants to hear.
Jesse's good at marketing.
There are 30,000 people a month that need and research this topic, surprisingly. Sweet. And so as I found this, I was like, you know what? We need to discuss it because 30,000 people, maybe this could help a few of them. So with that being said, just want to say thank you so much. If you have additional questions, please feel free to shoot us an email. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear your comments, feedback, even a review on the show. But we hope you have a wonderful day. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Matrimonial Merger Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode and found it informative and entertaining. If you did, we would love it if you could share this podcast with your friends and family who might also be interested in topics related to marriage and relationships. And if you have a few minutes, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve the show and reach more listeners like you. Thanks again for listening to the Matrimonial Merger. We'll be back soon with another episode.